Have you ever witnessed human kindness trigger something so primal it defied comprehension? When two wildlife researchers risked their lives to save a gorilla cub from a deadly leopard pack, they thought their heroic act would end there. But what the massive silverback did next, his response to seeing humans save his child, was so absolutely terrifying, so beyond anything ever documented, that it redefined our understanding of gorilla intelligence and the frightening depths of parental fury. Next, before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. The Bwindi Impenetrable Forest sprawls across the mist-shrouded mountains of southwestern Uganda, like a primeval cathedral where time itself seems suspended between ancient earth and endless sky. This UNESCO World Heritage Site represents one of Africa's last remaining fragments of pristine montane rainforest, where towering hardwood trees create a canopy so dense that sunlight filters through in golden shafts that seem to illuminate secrets older than human memory. Dense bamboo groves and tangled vine networks create natural corridors and hidden clearings, where some of the world's most endangered mountain gorillas have found their final sanctuary. The forest's impenetrable nature, which once protected these gentle giants from human encroachment, now serves as both fortress and prison for creatures whose survival hangs by the thinnest of threads in an increasingly hostile world. This isn't your typical conservation rescue story about human intervention and wildlife protection. What you're about to witness transcends every assumption about animal intelligence, parental instinct, and the terrifying power that lies dormant within nature's most peaceful creatures. It's not about research protocols or scientific observation. It's about something far more primal that emerges when the bonds of family are tested beyond every limit that evolution has prepared for. The forest's unique ecosystem creates overlapping territories where mountain gorillas must navigate the same paths used by leopards, forest elephants, and countless other species competing for survival in an environment where every resource is precious. During the rainy season, when visibility drops to mere meters and the forest floor becomes a treacherous maze of mud and hidden roots, these territorial boundaries become life and death negotiations. In this vertical wilderness where every tree could hide a predator and every sound carries messages of danger or safety, an encounter was about to unfold that would shatter every scientific understanding of gorilla behavior under extreme stress. What began as a routine research expedition would become a testament to human courage and trigger a response so terrifying that it would forever change how we perceive the intelligence and emotional depths of our closest evolutionary relatives. Hey. Dr. Marcus Kimathi and Dr. James Ocheng had spent the last 4 years tracking and documenting the behavioral patterns of Bwindi's most elusive gorilla family, their research contributing crucial data to conservation efforts that could determine the species' survival. Marcus, a Kenyan primatologist with 15 years of field experience, possessed an intuitive understanding of gorilla communication that had earned him legendary status among researchers. His weathered hands bore the scars of countless encounters with forest thorns and defensive animals, while his patient brown eyes reflected the deep respect that came from years of intimate observation. James, a Ugandan wildlife biologist whose childhood had been spent in villages bordering the forest, brought an invaluable combination of local knowledge and scientific training to their partnership. His ability to read environmental signs that university education couldn't teach had saved their research team from dangerous encounters with forest elephants, buffalo, and the elusive leopards that ruled the forest's shadowy depths. Deep within Bwindi's most inaccessible valleys lived Kwame's troop, a family of mountain gorillas whose survival represented a conservation miracle. Kwame, the magnificent silverback patriarch, stood nearly 6 feet tall and weighed over 400 pounds, his massive frame crowned by a distinctive silver saddle that caught the filtered forest light. His intelligent, dark eyes held the wisdom of a leader who had guided his family through decades of environmental challenges, poaching threats, and the constant pressure of human encroachment. At the heart of this family was little Django, Kwame's 3-year-old son, whose playful curiosity and fearless nature brought both joy and constant anxiety to the entire troop. The young gorilla's golden brown fur and bright eyes sparkled with the kind of innocent wonder that made him beloved by researchers and vulnerable to the forest's countless dangers in equal measure. Django's mother, Asha, was a powerful female whose maternal instincts had successfully raised 2 previous offspring to adulthood. Her protective nature and keen intelligence made her both the family's emotional center and its most vigilant guardian against the predators that stalked the forest shadows, always watching for opportunities to claim the young and vulnerable. Hun Nace. The first warning came as a subtle shift in the forest's natural rhythm that Marcus's trained senses detected long before any visual confirmation of danger. The primatologist was carefully documenting Django's play behavior when the familiar symphony of Bwindi's sounds began to fragment in a pattern he had learned to fear during his years of field research. The constant chatter of colobus monkeys fell silent in a wave that spread outward from the deeper forest, while the melodic calls of various bird species were replaced by an ominous quiet that spoke to the presence of apex predators. Marcus slowly lowered his observation notebook, his researcher's instincts immediately recognizing the environmental cues that preceded life-and-death encounters in the wild. Through hand signals developed during years of partnership, he alerted James to the growing tension that seemed to electrify the very air around Kwame's foraging family. The guerrilla troops' response was immediate and coordinated in ways that demonstrated their sophisticated understanding of forest dangers. Kwame's massive head lifted from his morning meal of wild celery, his nostrils flaring as he tested the air for scents that carried information about threats his family had learned to recognize through generations of survival. His low, rumbling vocalizations to the troop carried warning notes that made every adult gorilla immediately alert to potential danger. Little Django, fascinated by a colorful butterfly that had landed on a fallen log, remained blissfully unaware of the mounting tension around him. The young gorilla's playful pursuit of the insect had led him several meters away from his mother's protective reach, placing him in the vulnerable space between the family's defensive formation and the dark tangles of bamboo where predators could approach unseen. From their concealed observation point, Marcus and James could see what the gorillas could not: the subtle movement patterns in the dense undergrowth that spoke of coordinated stalking behavior. Their telephoto lenses revealed the unmistakable spots and fluid movements of not one, but multiple leopards using the forest's natural camouflage to execute what appeared to be a carefully planned ambush on the most vulnerable member of the gorilla family. What emerged from the bamboo thickets was a coordinated assault that demonstrated the terrifying intelligence of Africa's most adaptable predators. 3 massive leopards materialized from the forest shadows like liquid death-given form, their spotted coats blending seamlessly with the dappled light as they executed a hunting strategy that had been perfected over countless generations. Each cat weighed nearly 200 pounds of pure muscle and predatory instinct, their powerful frames moving with the fluid grace that made them the forest's most feared hunters. The attack unfolded with military precision that revealed the leopard's sophisticated understanding of gorilla family dynamics. The lead female, a battle-scarred matriarch whose torn ear spoke to years of successful hunts, positioned herself to cut off little Django's escape route back to his family. Meanwhile, her 2 companions spread out to create a killing triangle that would prevent any adult gorilla from reaching the cub without exposing themselves to devastating claw and fang attacks. The leopard's strategy was diabolical in its calculated cruelty. Rather than attempting a quick kill that might alert the adult gorillas before they could secure their prey, the predators began the psychological warfare that was their specialty. Their low growls and deliberate movements were designed to paralyze their victim with terror, while drawing the protective adults into tactical positions where the cats could exploit their superior speed and climbing abilities. Little Django's terrified screams pierced the forest air as he found himself trapped in the center of this deadly triangle. The young gorilla's natural instincts told him to flee toward his family, but every direction he turned revealed another set of predatory eyes fixed on his small form, with the cold calculation of hunters who had already mentally divided their prize. From their observation point, Marcus and James watched in horror as the gentle creature they had documented playing with butterflies just moments before was systematically isolated by predators whose hunting success rate approached 90% when they worked in coordinated packs. The leopards had chosen their target with devastating intelligence. Django was too young to defend himself effectively, yet old enough to provide substantial nutrition for the entire hunting group. The gorilla family's response to the leopard attack revealed the heartbreaking limitations that even these powerful primates faced when confronted with predators specifically evolved to hunt them. Kwame's roar of paternal fury shook the very trees as he witnessed his youngest son trapped in the leopard's deadly formation. But his massive size, normally his greatest asset, became a liability against predators whose strategy depended on speed and vertical mobility. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Asha's maternal anguish was visible in every desperate movement as she tried to find an approach that wouldn't trigger the leopard's killing response. Her years of experience had taught her that direct confrontation with multiple leopards often resulted in the very outcome she was trying to prevent: the immediate death of the threatened offspring. The other adult gorillas formed a defensive line, their collective intelligence recognizing that patience and coordination offered better odds than panic and individual heroism. Marcus and James found themselves frozen in a moment of impossible decision that would define the rest of their research careers. Every protocol they had ever learned screamed that human intervention in natural predator-prey interactions was forbidden, potentially disrupting evolutionary processes that had shaped these forests for millennia. Yet as they watched little Jingo's terror escalate and saw the leopards beginning to close their killing triangle, something deeper than scientific objectivity began to override their training. The researchers' equipment suddenly seemed meaningless compared to the life hanging in the balance mere meters away. Marcus's hands trembled as he calculated distances and angles, while James assessed the tactical challenge of approaching three of Africa's most dangerous predators in their own element. Their years of studying gorilla behavior had created emotional bonds with this family that transcended professional boundaries, making Jingo's peril feel like a personal crisis rather than a research observation. The critical moment arrived when the lead leopard began her final approach toward the paralyzed cub. Marcus and James exchanged a look that communicated everything. They were about to violate every rule of wildlife research to attempt something that would either save Jingo's life or add their own names to the forest's casualty list. Marcus and James's decision to intervene came not from rational calculation, but from something far more primal that transcended their scientific training. The two researchers abandoned their concealed observation point with coordinated precision, their years of partnership in dangerous fieldwork now serving them in the most unlikely rescue scenario of their careers. Marcus grabbed a sturdy branch while James armed himself with their emergency flare gun, both men moving with the desperate speed of those who understood that seconds could mean the difference between success and catastrophe. What made their approach extraordinary was their apparent understanding of leopard psychology gained through years of studying predator behavior in the wild. Instead of charging directly toward the cats in a way that might trigger their killing instincts, the researchers executed a flanking maneuver designed to confuse and divide the hunting pack's attention without immediately threatening their formation around little Jingo. The leopard's reaction to these unexpected human intruders revealed the intelligence that made them such formidable hunters. The lead female's amber eyes immediately assessed these new variables in her carefully planned attack, her predatory brain calculating whether these humans represented a greater threat than the potential loss of her intended prey. The tactical advantage that had seemed so secure moments before suddenly became complicated by factors the cats had never encountered in their evolutionary experience. Meanwhile, Kwame's response to seeing humans entering his family's crisis was a mixture of confusion and what could only be described as desperate hope. The Silverback's vocalizations shifted from pure anguish to something that sounded remarkably like encouragement, as if his paternal intelligence recognized that these unlikely allies represented his son's only chance for survival. From various positions throughout the forest clearing, other wildlife began to sense the unprecedented nature of what was unfolding. The same creatures that had fled at the first sign of leopard activity now seemed drawn back by an instinctive understanding that they were witnessing something historic, a moment when the boundaries between human observer and animal participant would be forever erased in the crucible of life and death crisis. The researchers' assault on the leopard formation was a calculated gamble that violated every safety protocol they had ever learned during their years of African fieldwork. Marcus's approach from the left flank was designed to draw the attention of the two companion leopards, while James positioned himself to challenge the lead female directly. Their coordinated strategy revealed tactical thinking developed through years of navigating dangerous wildlife encounters together. Marcus's improvised weapon, a thick hardwood branch nearly 6 feet in length, became an extension of his desperate determination as he struck the ground repeatedly, creating thunderous impacts that echoed through the forest like gunshots. The psychological effect on the leopards was immediate and dramatic. Their hunting focus disrupted by sounds that triggered ancient fears of larger, more dangerous threats. James's emergency flare created a spectacular display of light and smoke that transformed the forest clearing into an alien landscape. The brilliant red illumination and acrid chemical smell overwhelmed the leopard's sensitive visual and olfactory systems, creating sensory chaos that made their carefully planned ambush impossible to execute. The cats found themselves suddenly fighting not just for their prey, but for their ability to navigate an environment that had become hostile and unpredictable. The lead leopard's reaction revealed the split-second decision-making that separated successful predators from dead ones. Faced with two aggressive humans using tools and tactics she had never encountered, the matriarch made the calculation that would save both human and gorilla lives. This hunt had become too costly to continue. Her survival instincts, honed through years of dangerous kills, recognized when retreat offered better odds than persistence. The psychological impact of the flare's brilliance seemed to break the spell that had held little Django paralyzed with terror. The young gorilla's natural instincts finally overcame his fear, and he began scrambling toward his family's protective formation with desperate speed. But the leopard's tactical advantage hadn't been completely eliminated. Two of the cats began pursuing the fleeing cub while their leader assessed the human threat. The forest clearing erupted in chaos as predator, prey, and rescuer converged in a life-and-death struggle that would test every assumption about courage, intelligence, and survival in the wild. The battle for little Django's life reached its crescendo when the two pursuing leopards launched themselves toward the fleeing cub with lightning speed that demonstrated why they ruled the forest's predatory hierarchy. Their powerful hindquarters propelled them through the air with deadly grace, closing the distance to their prey in heartbeats that seemed to stretch into eternity for every witness to this desperate drama. Marcus and James's final coordinated assault revealed the full extent of their determination to save the young gorilla regardless of personal cost. Marcus intercepted the first leopard with his makeshift club, the impact sending shockwaves through his arms as hardwood met muscle and bone. Meanwhile, James triggered his second flare directly into the path of the other cat, creating a wall of brilliant light and choking smoke that forced the predator to abort its killing leap. But it was in this moment of apparent victory that something absolutely terrifying began to emerge from the forest depths. Kwame's response to witnessing humans save his son triggered a transformation that redefined everything researchers thought they knew about gorilla behavior under extreme stress. The massive silverback's protective fury transcended every limit of normal primate aggression, his 400-pound frame moving with supernatural speed toward the leopards, with a violence that seemed to shake the very foundations of the forest. What happened next challenged every assumption about the boundaries between intelligence and pure primal rage. Kwame's roar was unlike anything ever documented in wildlife research. A sound so deep, so filled with paternal fury, that it seemed to resonate from some primordial place where love and violence merged into something terrifying beyond comprehension. His massive fist struck the earth with such force that the ground trembled beneath everyone's feet. The leopard's reaction was immediate and absolute. These apex predators, who feared nothing in their natural environment, fled from Kwame's approaching fury with the desperate speed of creatures who recognized they were facing something beyond their evolutionary experience. The lead female's tactical retreat became a full rout as the entire pack disappeared into the forest shadows, abandoning their hunt in the face of parental rage that transcended every law of the wild. The immediate aftermath of the leopard retreat created a scene that challenged every protocol in wildlife research ethics and redefined the relationship between human observer and animal subject. As the last spotted forms disappeared into the bamboo thickets, an extraordinary silence settled over the forest clearing, broken only by little Django's relieved whimpers as he finally reached the safety of his mother's protective embrace. Kwame's transformation from terrifying avenger back to gentle patriarch was as dramatic as it was swift, but the residual power radiating from his massive frame continued to electrify the air around him. The silverback's intelligent dark eyes found Marcus and James with an intensity that seemed to pierce directly into their souls, his gaze communicating recognition, gratitude, and something far more profound that transcended every boundary between species. What happened next would forever change how these researchers understood the emotional depth of their subjects. Kwame approached the two men with movements so deliberate and purposeful that it was impossible to interpret them as anything other than conscious acknowledgement of their intervention. The massive silverback stopped just arm's length away, his enormous presence both humbling and awe-inspiring as he extended one massive hand toward Marcus in what could only be described as a gesture of thanks. The touch when it came was gentle beyond imagination. This creature whose fury had just terrorized 3 leopards into flight now caressed Marcus's face with the delicacy of a butterfly landing on a flower. James received similar treatment, Kwame's massive fingers exploring their features as if memorizing the faces of those who had risked everything for his family. But perhaps the most terrifying aspect of the entire encounter was the intelligence visible in Kwame's eyes during these interactions. This wasn't simple animal gratitude. It was the recognition of one conscious being acknowledging the sacrifice of others, complete with an understanding of debt that suggested these humans had become part of his family's story in ways that would endure for generations. The researchers realized they had crossed a line from which there was no return, forever altering their relationship with subjects who had revealed themselves to be far more than the objects of scientific study they had once believed them to be. The story of Marcus and James's heroic intervention and Kwame's terrifying response became a cornerstone in primatology research, fundamentally challenging every assumption about the emotional capacity and intelligence of our closest evolutionary relatives. Their footage from that day provided unprecedented documentation of gorilla behavior under extreme stress, revealing depths of consciousness and feeling that rewrote scientific understanding of animal psychology. The most profound impact wasn't on academic circles but on the researchers themselves. Marcus and James found their relationship with Kwame's family permanently transformed from scientific observation to something approaching kinship. The silverback's recognition of their sacrifice had created bonds that transcended species boundaries, making future research feel more like visiting family than studying subjects. Wildlife conservation protocols worldwide began incorporating new guidelines based on the Bwindi incident, recognizing that the traditional boundaries between human observer and animal subject might sometimes need to yield to more fundamental moral imperatives. The story inspired a new generation of researchers to consider the ethical implications of passive observation when intervention could prevent tragedy. Most terrifying and beautiful of all was the revelation of what lay beneath the surface of creatures we thought we understood. Kwame's display of protective fury followed by gentle gratitude demonstrated that gorillas possessed emotional depths and intelligence that rivaled human capacity for love, memory, and moral recognition. His ability to distinguish between threat and ally, to remember kindness and respond with appreciation, suggested consciousness far more complex than science had previously acknowledged. The Bwindi Impenetrable Forest continues to guard its secrets, but Kwame's family now moves through those ancient trees with the knowledge that somewhere in their world exist humans who would risk everything for their welfare. The story serves as a reminder that courage, gratitude, and the bonds of family are universal languages that transcend every boundary evolution has created. In those mist-shrouded mountains where earth touches sky, where the impossible becomes inevitable when love is tested beyond endurance, their legacy continues to inspire new understanding of what it truly means to be conscious, compassionate beings sharing this fragile world we call home. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.